my little badge. If you haven't got yours yet, get it. So yeah. But equally, I feel super grateful to be along with these five brave and beautiful ladies with me today. So they're, as I say, here to share their stories, their experiences, for the very first time publicly, which is like an amazing thing to do, and I'm so, so grateful to each one of them. Your courage is such a gift, and as I said a second ago, our collective hope here is that for those watching, then you know that you're not alone in this unexpected journey that we're on. I'm going to introduce the ladies or ask the ladies to introduce themselves in just a second, but I just want to put a kind of like thing out there before I go any further, which is then the theme today of this webinar is around grief and gratitude. I want to kind of pause on that word gratitude because it's like depending upon where you are in your journey at this moment in time, that can feel really, really tender and might even bubble up some kind of like whoa, gratitude. That's completely normal. That's okay. And please know that during this webinar, there will be space to bring your own words, your own labels, and to name the experience in whatever way that feels right for you. So let go of that word as well if that's causing a challenge for you. Completely fine. I would like to just open our space by lighting a little candle. Let me just get myself organized on this one. Let's see if the thing works. Okay. So just to create a nice little safe space for us, I'm going to light a wee candle. And kind of like, I know it can be nerve-wracking for us all to be here. If you're on chat or if you are here as a panelist for the very first time. So kind of just taking a couple of deep breaths. Hopefully my deep breath doesn't blow out the candle. And imagining that kind of, I don't know, we're just sitting round together, round a fireplace, circle, holding hands, and creating a safe space. Because we know that the ladies here joining us on chat, you're here to support us. And we're here to support them too. And we're here to discover our own wisdoms and share that amongst us. And yeah, just wanted to create that safe space. And I'm going to put this candle in here and just kind of taking a few deep breaths. And whenever you feel ready, coming back in, and whoever would like to kick off out of the panelists, perhaps then I'd love to we can see your names, but just to make it nice and easy to kind of start with, your name, where you're from, how long you've been traveling this journey where you've known that you've been permanently childless, and any highlights of your story, just a minute or two, just to kind of like touch base so that people know a little bit about you all. Um, who would like to start?
It's always a difficult bit, isn't it?
All right, Tracy.
Tracy,
Yeah.
come on, you
Yeah.
volunteered.
Hi, everybody. My name's Tracy. I live just outside Glasgow in Scotland. I'll try and speak slowly so you can understand the Scottish accent. I met my now husband early in my 20s, married when I was 30, planned on having kids when I think I was 31. We thought, right, okay, we're ready. And then dealt a devastating blow that we would never, ever have children naturally. So that led us down the path of IVF, coupled with the NHS, and three private, so five all unsuccessful. And I'm kind of at a stage now, I'm in my 50s, but I didn't actually realise until I was nearing 50 just how much I was still grieving not being a mum. And like Sandra, I'd stumbled across the World Childless Week and dipped my toe in, um, and feel really in a better place now than I did when I first met the ladies and the panelists and things. So yeah, it's been probably the best part of 10 years I've been grieving but didn't actually realise it.
Mm.
And only more recently been accepting of it and speaking about it a bit more, and delighted to be asked to be here today to speak a bit more about my journey.
Huge welcome. Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you.
Catherine, would you mind going next? It's then the circle starts there for me. So
Oh, does it? Yeah, I'm Catherine. I'm down in the southwest of England. Um, I uh, I guess yeah. So I'm now 48. I guess my awareness of my grieving started when I was 32, so kind of 16 years ago. Um, Very grateful that Gateway Women existed back then. So I think it was like in its first or second year, and was part of that community for 10 years. But so when I was 32, part of my job was to go and visit toddler groups, and increasingly I found that my
Mm.
world fell apart every time I went to visit one. And I thought, right, I need some help with this. So I found a counsellor, and she was amazing with me and helped me with really practical ways of dealing with that. Now, at the time, I had every hope that I was still going to get married and have children. So it was more like, how do I cope with this grief for now until I get what I want? So I have been a Christian for, well, I was part of churches for over 45 years until very recently, very full on involved. And so in that tradition, you are taught from a very young age that sex is for within marriage, and that you cannot marry anyone who is not a Christian, and you can't yoke together, is the good Christian phrase that we'd have. So unfortunately, churches are not full of men. So you're kind of in this situation where there's loads of single women, hardly any men, and I didn't meet anybody, didn't settle down with anybody. So, but I guess at 32, I was still kind of hopeful. In the process of having therapy, about a year into it, I started having flashbacks of abuse during my teenage years, which my brain had completely blocked out for 15 years. And that just brought a whole other layer to it. So I was then kind of working through all of that. In that kind of process, I was like, right, I don't want anything to do with men, so let's go down the fostering route. As a single lady, I was turned down for fostering for financial reasons. That was devastating. A couple of years later, I was like, right, if that's not for me, I'm going down the adoption route, because that's all part of God's plan as well. You know, if we can't marry someone, we can adopt and all that kind of stuff. And then I was turned down for adoption as well. And so spent another couple of years recovering from that absolute devastation as another kind of clink of, do you know what? This isn't going to happen for you. But as Sandra will know, I was in tears again this morning, because until I was asked that question, when did you know you would be childless? I'm like, I still don't know it. As in, like I haven't had a period for 6 months, so I'm not having children, right? But somewhere in there is a bit of like, oh, well, it's definitely still going to happen, right? Like, because I can't accept fully that it's not going to happen. But yeah, so I would say for the last 16 years I've been grieving, but this process of coming to terms with it, we're still not there. Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much for bravely sharing, Catherine. And some of the webinar that we're going to go through today, let's see how that resonates with you. And, yeah, let's just leave that open and see what happens. But thank you so much. Beth, you're next.
Okay. I'm Beth. I'm from Wales in the UK. I found this community a year ago exactly today. It has been a complete game changer. So I had started to feel some physical and emotional pain leading up to that week. So I'd started to search for things and amazingly found World Childless Week and listened to a webinar by Sandra on the emotional seasons of grief, and it hit me that I was grieving and I hadn't really realised. So, yeah, I think this year is probably when I've really sort of realised the permanency of it. There'd always been a little bit of hope following IVF, which ended in 2021. And because it was unexplained infertility, there'd always been a little bit of hope. But that hope has gone. And it's been the last year, really, that I realised it. So it's been a wild year, but I feel like Tracy in a much stronger position now than I did a year ago, thanks to the community I found and lots of other things that I've kind of nurtured over the last year. And I feel ready to accept that there will be another winter, but that's okay, because I know I can manage it and I can survive it and I can probably thrive as well.
I think it's good to breathe during this because I can already feel the emotions bubbling up. So just, yeah, I should have taken Steph's advice and got some tissues before we started too, which I thank you, ladies. Thank you, Beth. Terry.
Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be here today. I am in Kentucky, in the USA, in the heart of horse and bourbon country. And I'm 57. And I found out that I would not be able to have children biologically when I was 34. It seems like so long ago. This was due to an infertility diagnosis, and basically my body was going through menopause at age 34, and so there was just I think the doctor said I would have a 4% chance of conception naturally. So unfortunately, at the time, there were not these wonderful resources that I've found within the last year. I looked, I wanted support. I didn't know that I was grieving. I didn't really know or identify what I was experiencing as a loss or grief. And so that all just sort of stayed stuck inside me for 20 years. I didn't really know any other women who were childless not by choice. I knew a couple of women that were childless by choice, and there was some relation, but there was not the connection and understanding that I so was looking for. And then one day last year, I don't even remember how, I was doing an online search and came across Jody Day's book and got it immediately and just devoured it. I mean, it was like having a glass of water after having been in the desert for years and years. And of course, there were so many resources I found in that book. Gateway Women, Childless Life, just so much online support. And I was so excited that there was so much out there now. And so I began the process of getting all of that grief processed and unstuck. I would echo what some others have said previously. I'm in a much better spot now than before. And the support is just, the various kinds of support have just made a complete difference for me, because I still feel kind of isolated in my life. I'm not really around other women that I know of who are are childless not by choice, and I'm not even around babies very much in my life. So everything sort of became sheltered, and having this support allowed me to really bring it up and process it. And so yeah, it's been a journey. I'm still on it. There's still much work to be done, and I'm just really thankful that there's so much support out there now. So
Thank you, Terry. Julia.
Yeah, it's so lovely to hear everyone else's stories. I just think how lucky we are that we have this community. And thank you to Sandra for putting this panel together. So my name's Julia. I live in Solihull. I'm 57, and my story is I was married a guy that I thought was my best friend. We did a lot together. We did everything together. We played golf. We sailed yachts. We were always sailing. Everybody knew us as like the couple who were off doing something together. And we decided to start trying to conceive before we were 30, and it didn't happen. So we went to consultants. We had all of the treatments you have before IVF, and nothing happened. So we then went for IVF. We had 3 attempts at IVF in 12 months. Which was very traumatic, very unsuccessful. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I was doing. I felt really, really, literally at sea, trying to, another story, another day for that one, but doing my injections on boats and in shower blocks and all sorts of things. But I just knew I wanted to have children. So after 3 attempts, we decided to stop for a while and have a break. We got a boat and we went on a big sailing odyssey for a year. And we hoped that maybe being completely away from London and away from all the difficulties and the stress that we might conceive naturally. So we had an amazing year together. We lived our life. We met some amazing friends. We had a great time. Didn't really think about it too much. Obviously, tried to conceive while we were away. Still, nothing happened. We then came back to England after a year, and my husband was really keen that we should try a 4th round of IVF. I wasn't so keen because we'd been away for so long. I needed to get settled, but he was insistent. So we had one more try, and it was very traumatic. And it was ended in a negative pregnancy test, which I took really hard. I was really angry with grief. He was really sad, and we just weren't communicating very well at all. So 6 months later, he came home and said he was leaving because he was in love with someone else that he'd met at work, and he was off, and he literally walked out the door. So it was really hard. I just didn't know what to do with myself. So I fell apart and went through divorce. I had to put my childlessness and my grief on a shelf in a box for a year and a half while I sorted out the divorce, because he wanted money, he wanted everything his way, he wanted me out of the house. It was tough. So we got through the divorce after a year and a half, finally settled, and I started to get on with my life. But I just was trying to deal with the fact that I never wanted to be divorced, and I never wanted to be without children. I wanted to have children. It was always on the plan. So I started to rebuild my life, started dating, met another guy who was really solid. He was a lawyer, so he had a really strong track record of reliability, and we started dating. And then one day I opened up the Sunday Times magazine and read an article about More to Life, another organisation similar to Gateway Women, and contacted them, and just amazingly met some people from some other women from More to Life. And I just couldn't believe that I was hearing from other people things that were going on in my head, and it was okay. And suddenly I felt acceptance. I felt like I was accepted and I had a place, because I felt really lost, really, really, really lost. And it was really good to hear those words. I'm still in touch with the girls now. It was a long time ago now, but I'm still in touch with them. They're good friends, and we did a lot of stuff together at the time. So fast forward very quickly, but I then got into another relationship and moved back to the Midlands where I am now. Unfortunately, that relationship turned abusive. And there was no way I was going to be able to bring children into that relationship. Absolutely no way. In fact, I ended up packing my bags and my dog into the car and running. And fast forward, here I am now. I live in a house on my own. I'm really happy. I am dating someone who's also really stable, and he's a safe place, which is great. But I still have, I'm 50, at 57, I'm still grieving and still accepting the fact that I have a life with no children in it.
Mm. Wow. Thank you, ladies, so much for sharing your stories. I know that there's people out there listening, and everybody has such a unique, different story, but there's elements of your story that are then, yeah, sitting with other people. And yeah, so thank you so much. Yeah. But then that common thread as well came through quite loudly for me as well. Sometimes that, how our grief had to be put on hold, or we didn't know that we were grieving, or we were expecting something else to come later and things as well. So thank you so much for all sharing that. For those that don't know me, I want to go onto the model and show you some stuff. So, but I'll give you a 10-second version of my story. I was one of these people who always wanted to have children. So, I think one of my first childhood memories is saying to a friend that then, I'm not going to be an old mum. I'm not going to be a young mum. I'm going to wait till I'm 25. So as if, when you're 5 years old or whatever, 25 was like ancient. So I was going to wait till I was 25. But I think there's a certain element that of women of our generation, and I'll say our generation and make that a little bit wider on both ends, is then, we were also brainwashed that we could do it all. We could have the university, the career, have our houses, whatever, and children could come later. It was then, we could do it all. So there was certainly an aspect of that in my 20s. I was in a relationship. I wasn't ready to have children. But then that relationship ended when I was 29. And from 29 to 39, I was single. And I would say single, not by choice. And I was looking for a partner, but not finding the appropriate person to parent with. And as I come from divorced parents, for me, I completely respect people who have different models to this. However, for me, it was really important that my child was going to have two stable parents. So at 36, I decided to freeze my eggs so I could secure my future and guarantee my child. Then yeah, at 39, I finally met my husband, who is a wonderful person, and that was fantastic. However, he wasn't so sure about children to start with. He has his own health issues and such likes. However, he was willing to try. We then went on to have two natural pregnancies and two natural losses, which then utterly shattered my innocence around the world as a whole. And then we went on to pull the eggs out of the freezer, and IVF didn't work neither. Donor embryos and adoption weren't options for us. So in November 2019, my dream ended and we became childless, not by choice, permanently. So, and yeah, as we go through, when I show you this kind of model a little bit around what we're going to discuss in this call, then you'll hear a little bit more about my journey. So I won't go on so much for that piece. But yeah, a huge thank you to all of the ladies for sharing. So here, yeah, as I say, we'll be allowed to put our own labels. I suggest if you haven't got it yet, then you have a pen and piece of paper handy for those that are watching, or you pause for a second if you're watching on the replay, and you can grab a pen and piece of paper, because there's some things that you can do in here. But as a grief therapist, I have the privilege of watching daily how, just like the stories that we've just heard, how grief is unique to each and every one of us. I found also that we crave structure. We want, a way of, when will this end? Give me the finish line, Sandra. Give me the tasks that I need to do, and I will do those. But give me the finish line and tell me how this will end. And it's like, okay, not so sure around that piece. But what I am sure around is that, traditional grief models with their neat stages and tidy timelines rarely capture the complexity of being childless, not by choice. We've heard already, some very unique journeys and things in here. And everybody on the chat will have another unique journey as they go with it. However, in one of my workshops and in my groups, then I tend to get really positive feedback about a model which has probably for liability reasons, I can't say it has a terrible name, but yeah, it doesn't have the best name in the world, which is called the dual grief model of the dual process of grief. So the name sounds a little bit academic, but stick with me. It's like I usually get really positive feedback around this. So I'm actually probably going to share my screen. Let me then just see if I can get ready to screen share 1 second, because it'll just make it a bit easier. Share, and let me pop this on present mode. Okay. So the dual model of grief then has 3 different elements to it that are kind of important. So the first one then is what they call, and again, the terminology is quite academic, let's call it, is loss orientated. So loss orientation is about doing the deep, tender grief work and making space to process the thoughts, emotions, and regrets of everything that we've lost. So you've got various different things kind of listed out there on the screen that then is linked to loss orientation. So that's important to do the grief work for a healthy grieving process. But equally, it's also just as important, if I can, why is it not moving forward? Okay, there we go. It's just as important to do what they call restoration orientation. So the first thing that I want to point out in the slide is distracting yourself from the loss. So it might be like, okay, well, wait a minute, is that allowed? Am I allowed to binge on Netflix? Yes, you are. So, permission to distract yourself from the loss, whatever that may be. Find different moments of peace. But it's like, how do you distract yourself and step into the life that's available to us in terms of Childless, not by choice? So, there's creating new traditions, doing new things, making new relationships and stepping into new roles there. But what's important in this is this little zigzag line as well. They call it oscillation, which then basically means how we bounce between these two different areas. So sometimes we're doing our grief work and sometimes we're across here, basically distracting ourselves or, taking up a new hobby or whatever the thing might be. But every time, we're kind of like, what I find really useful about this model is that you see this line down here. I imagine that's a timeline through kind of your life and your process through grief. What's really important is when you do some grief work and you bounce across the other side and you connect with a new hobby or whatever it may be, and then you go back and the grief bubbles up again, you always arrive at a different point with a different perspective. So when sometimes we feel that, oh my God, I'm back here again. How did I get back into the grief at this moment in time? Catherine tenderly spoke about it this morning. You come at it as at a different perspective. All of that time that you're across here, whether that's 1 minute or 1 year across here, it gives you new perspectives just as well, as the deep grief work that we do, that gives us new perspectives as well and allows new things to open up in our life. So both of these things are important. So I just want to mention as well here that Sarah Roberts actually first introduced me to this model. So I just wanted to call her out on that and say thank you for introducing me to this model. I did later get it in my grief therapy, but just to call out that as well. However, this line also looks a little bit neat. So this is a very, very summarised version of my 6 years of this model. So, it doesn't look that neat and your model will be as unique as this. So here, my personal preference was when I found out I wasn't able to have children was, okay, let's just look at those benefits, bring them on, forget all of this stuff. I'm going on holiday, I'm going to go to concerts, I'm going to do this, that and the next thing, and I'm going to live my life fully. But somehow this feeling of feeling empty, alone, lost just kept bubbling up. So no matter where I went, the grief came with me and it bubbled up. And as you heard in my introduction then, one of the key points for me in finding World Childless Week in the community that really allowed me to go into that, sacred place of grief it's a transformational place. It's really looking at the identity of who we are. Who are we without, those children that we wanted? It can feel like a dark night of the soul where, our identities and things feel like they're melting away in some ways. And, we're kind of like, yeah, transforming into something else, but we don't know who we are. We can be quite a really beautiful experience, but a really hard experience as well. And the beauty of the experience for me was having my hand held with other people in the community. And really that allowed me to build bridges and to step back out into the world. But at that moment in time, my restoration stuff was really simple. This is not like, okay, reinvent the world type thing. This was doing embroidery, walking in nature, hugging my dogs, whatever, just things to, how can I escape from this grief for a little while? How can I just enter into peace? But, and then, yeah, this is 6 years summarized in a very high level, this is then, yeah. But, there was quite a lot of focus on the grief work there and less focus on the restoration. Whereas my original thing was more across here trying to stay in restoration. But little by little, that grief work like helped me build bridges back into the community, back into the wider world, let's say. And then you go back into the wider world, or I went back into the wider world, started to come across children, started to come across parents, and people saying statements about, the biggest pride in their world is in their lives is their children, those type of things, and that just bubbles it all up again. But little by little, new roles and things start to develop and whatever. In my case, my husband then decided he didn't want to risk us having any more losses and whatever. And whilst I believed I was permanently childless, not by choice, somehow that reminder of my period each month and all of those type of things still bubbled things up in some different way. However, my husband at that stage decided that he wanted to have a vasectomy for the good of us both so that, we didn't face another loss. And there I tumbled back down into grief again. But something that I noticed was that grief didn't last as long this time. Somehow I had built more resources and such likes. This is my experience. As I say, everybody's experience will be different. I'm not saying that there's any rights or wrongs in anybody's experience. But yeah, somehow I then, came out of that quicker, started to find, retraining for, supporting others, joining choirs, going out there and doing other things in the world, but generally feeling a greater sense of freedom. But that doesn't mean this is a living loss that we have. So that doesn't mean that new things don't bubble up. Like my nephew is now, his girlfriend is now pregnant, and grandchildren are going to come along for my siblings and such likes. And that does bubble things back up again. But yeah, this is kind of like a working example, let's say, of that dual grief model in action. But what I'd really love to do is hear from the ladies a little bit more as well. So I'm going to stop screen sharing there. But just before I do that, then I would love that basically the people at home, I have a few kind of suggestions for you if you'd like to grab that piece of paper, pop a line down the side of it, down the centre of it. How would you label those two sides? That loss orientation and restoration orientation. How would you name them? If you saw at the top of the screen, I called it grief and gratitude, but I also called it, linking into what Julia was saying, I called it waves and onshore. So very similar to your sealogy there, a little bit, Julia. So how would you name those? And just list out a little bit of, what are the things that connect you to your grief? And what are the things then that connect you back to the life that is available to you, or how you disconnect from that grief? And take your time, pause this if you're at home and whatever, and take some time. And, precious time. Don't rush this in any way at all. But once you have that list, just take a step back and have a look and think, which list is longer? And that kind of shows you your preference. Like I said, my preference was to kind of jump by the grief and focus on life in a way. It kind of shows you where your preferences are. And whatever your preference is, you probably need to note some other things on the other side, or it'd be helpful for your healing process to note some things on the other side so that you can, connect into the grief if you don't naturally do that, or if you feel like sometimes you get really stuck in that grief, how can you connect back across onto the restoration side? So those would be the invitations there. However, as I say, this webinar is going past way, way, way too quickly. So what I would invite the ladies to do, so we can really hear like how does this sit with them at their stage of their individual journeys? What helps them connect to or what forces them to connect to their grief? Because sometimes it's not what helps connect. Sometimes there's a situation that bubbles up and it's like, okay, this is what's connecting me into my grief at this moment in time. But what else is connecting you into that restoration piece, that life that is available to you? I'd just love to hear that then, some of the examples as to, we've heard that we're all at different stages of our journey in some way. But what things are bubbling up for you?
I think for me, the diagram itself is even fascinating in that I think probably for the first 5 or 6 years, there was nothing on the right-hand side for me. It was completely in the other side, not just for a year, like for years.
Mm-hmm.
And I genuinely got to stages in my life where I thought it wasn't worth carrying on.
Mm.
That's how distressed I was.
Mm.
That, if I'm not going to have this thing that I knew that I was always going to have, then what is there? And I think it really pissed me off that, oh, sorry, I probably shouldn't say that on recording.
You can say whatever, it's fine.
That people would go, oh, just look at what you've got, look at all the things that you can do, look at all that. And I go off to that, because this other side you can't force yourself to do. And I have now, just looking at the list, thinking of the things that I do and actually did naturally, certainly the distracting stuff. But the other ones now are just bubbling away and actually happening, in terms of finding moments of peace and creating new traditions and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, just looking at your bouncing back and forth, and yeah, just for years I was over in that other side. And occasionally, like literally for a few minutes, might pop over to the other side, and then it would be back in this darkness. And I think for now, where things are mostly triggering for me, and when I get pushed back into that side and go, oh, okay, we need to do some more grief work here, when I thought I was done with that, is over my friends are all at the stage where their kids are doing exams and going to university. And in that period, they're learning to drive. So I've got 2 friends at the moment who are teaching my kids to drive. And actually, it freaks me out because I don't know that I'd ever have been any good at that. But they get to do it with their children, and I'm never going to get to do that with my children. I was going to have 4. So there's things like that. And then I've recently started a new job. So it's going to come. Like, everybody's talking about their families and their kids. So do you have kids? I hate that question. Do you have kids? And then her response, the one that asked me first, was, I've never really heard it before. She's like, oh, well, not everybody wants kids, do they? In fact, I probably, if I had my time again, I probably wouldn't have my son. Fucking hell, give him to me then.
I remember somebody offering me them, Catherine. Somebody saying, well, I've got 4. Do you want 2 of mine?
Oh.
So yeah, I think there's triggers around new spaces and new places, when people say stuff, and you have to kind of gear yourself up because they're going to come. Yeah, I'll be quiet now. I said quite a lot.
I would invite you, because you were saying, that those are the triggers, and you said that there are other spaces, and it's taken you a long time for those other spaces to bubble up. Could you share just a little bit? Because as I say, I can see how the time is going, that we might not get the 2 rounds round. It'd be lovely to hear, what are those spaces, and how do you feel like those did bubble up for you? Just a second on that.
Yeah, I mean, some of this is to do with the kind of work of having to accept who you are. Like I didn't really like myself for a very long time. So in this process of grief and working out who am I and all that kind of stuff, finding things that I genuinely am myself in. So, so one of my beautiful things that I just kind of tripped up over is I started going to a boot camp, like a, exercise thing. That was, everybody was so beautiful. And I continue to go to that group 3 years on. We have 3 colours, and I was in the lowest group for about 18 months. Everybody else is normally in it for 6 months. But that got me to a stage where somebody said you should do something, that you go and get a medal for. So I did a triathlon, like completely out of nowhere. I started training for a triathlon, and people like, you're doing what? Because they know how unfit I was and how much I hate doing anything. But through doing that then opened up into volunteering for this organization that do them, because I found that organization so incredibly inclusive, and I found myself being so alive and excited about seeing other people achieve these amazing things. So I pretty much rock up to all their events now, and I'm on registration, and I love welcoming people and getting through the stuff. Now, I'm like, yeah, those kind of things are the new things, the new experiences, and there are those voices that go, well, if you had kids, you wouldn't be able to do this. And I go, fuck off to that, because if I had kids, I would love having kids, and I wouldn't need to do this. But then there's also that kind of actually swing back. No, I really, really am enjoying this, and that isn't downgrading how deeply I wanted children, because there is that sense of you're betraying it somehow by, if you're suddenly enjoying yourself, then clearly you didn't want kids very much. So yeah, but yeah, there's things like that. I've recently, as in May, started in a choir. Again, haven't sung since primary school. I'm really enjoying that. But if anybody had told me you need to go out and try these things, I would have put to them, because if you're not there, don't do it. But now that I am, those are the bits on the other side.
But it's funny how that natural space does grow in things. Something happens in there for resolve. So it's yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Wonderful. Tracy, would you like to go next?
Yeah, I was just thinking about my titles for the 2 columns. I always kind of refer to it as fight and flight. That's my how did I cope back for, I spent a decade of my 30s not just within and consumed in treatment. I spent a decade of my 40s not really speaking to anybody, holding all what I didn't know was grief inside. And then as I approached 50, it was like, oh, I can't do this anymore. Can't do it. Need to express some of this. And stumbled across Childless Live, stumbled across Sandra. And it wasn't until a key moment for me was when we did that grief model, and we sat and everybody said, I think the cameras were going on and off at the time, and you were to say if you were part of, it was milestones. I remember everybody coming on and saying the milestones, and I thought, oh, she feels the same as me. She's never had a child graduate from nursery. She's hates social media when it's Halloween time. She hates Christmas.
Yes.
Who hates Christmas?
Yes.
I hate Christmas. I do. I hate Christmas. And you feel such a evil kind of person for saying that, but I do. Christmas can. I've got such a small family as well. My brother's in Australia. He doesn't have any children, so there's only really my mum and dad and Craig and I. So it's really tough to kind of navigate that grief when there's such a. I suppose I'm lucky that I didn't have to go to big, family engagements with loads of kids. But in the same breath, my mum and dad didn't get to have any children, so I held that grief really tightly, and only recently have kind of come out the other side and started to speak to my mum about it. I've spoke to and this is all thanks to Sandra's groups. I've come out and I've spoken to my best friends about it. I've been in groups with a couple of the panelists, and I remember last Christmas, I'm trying to think of the kind of positive things and the things that made me trial onto the fighting mode. Somebody had suggested just lighting a candle on Christmas Day for the children that you never had. And I did that last Christmas, and that is something I could never have done before without wailing the whole day. I would just cried and been in a bad mood and, just get it over and done with. I hate this day. But now that day, I lit the candle, I made a nice meal. It was nice to just celebrate the day with what little family I do have. And I was really proud of myself for getting from that hating social media and hating the world person to, right, okay, I can collect this grief now. I can distribute it a bit better, and speak to people and live in the moment. Live in the moment. A lot of people don't still have their mum and dad. I'm very lucky to still have mine. So yeah, that's kind of where there was two. They're fight and flight for me. They're just how you feel when you open your eyes that day, and some days you will still go back to those triggering moments. And social media, if you can delete it, then I would suggest you just delete it, get rid of it, because it's always going to trigger you. What Sandra said about the grandparent thing, I think because we are now at that stage where everybody's kids have all just graduated uni, or their kids are having kids, and my friends are all now grandparents, and yeah, I'm finding that really tough just now, really tough.
Yeah. We've only just heard from two of the ladies, but it's like, yeah, if you were to draw that model that then I've just drawn, how different would both of your models be? It's so, and I'm kind of pulling that out for the folks listening as well, because yours will be also super unique. And it's then, and we all have this unique way of healing, which is then, yeah, it's thank you both for sharing. Julia, you're next on my circle.
Yeah, thank you. Just some musings really. There's a lot. There's actually I came on thinking, oh, what am I going to say? And now I feel like I've got so much to say. That's mad. Yeah, I've obviously feel like I've been on this journey for a really long time, and as I said to someone before, it's kind of it's like trying to create a life that you never really you expected to have to create, because it's almost like you expected to go one way, but in actual fact you're going this way, and so you don't really know what is this way, and yes, very much so. I resonate what Catherine was just saying. I resonate because I'm the kind of person who's always kept myself busy. So I do. If I kind of a long time ago, I think when I hit 40, I thought, wow, I've only got one life now, so this is what it looks like. Obviously, it was when I hit 40. I remember I was in a job where I just cried every day because I was going through my divorce, hadn't got children. I was hit 40 thinking, okay, I currently don't have a home, I don't have children, I don't have a job. So I got a job. I was really lucky. I got a lifeline of a job, and I was really lucky because I had a desk on my own, and I just used to cry every day. And I had my back to the office, the open plan office. I just could cry. It was such a gift because I could just sit there like sobbing and no one could see. So that was really good. As the journey evolved, I've just kind of, I guess it's not perfect, but I've got to say, so at 40, I said, right, I'm going to say yes to things. I'm just not going to hide myself away in a tunnel, even though often I did feel like hiding away in a tunnel. I've got myself out there a lot, and Sandra knows my story because we've done a lot of work together, and I'm so grateful for that. Things like I got involved with a lot of fitness. So I started cycling. I've raised tons of money for cycling, did loads of cycle trips. I just did another one this year, 15 years on. I did another one. I've raised like thousands of pounds for a suicide prevention charity. And I'm really grateful to have been able to do that. I got a dog. I saw one of my more to life friends got a dog, and I just saw suddenly, everything changed for her because she had a dog. So when I moved up here into the countryside, I've got a dog. You just saw her because she hates to be excluded from Zoom calls. Outside scratching the door, going, "Why am I not here?" In my world for 13 years. I'm so grateful for her. She has literally changed everything. She and I are best friends. We do everything together. Take her to the hairdressers. I take her to restaurants, cafes. Basically, if you can't have your dog, you won't have me. So that's been really good. One time, and sometimes I have like, dare I say, effort moments where I just go, sometimes when I'm feeling strong and I'm feeling healthy, then I'll just decide, right, I'm going to do that and no one's going to stop me. So I remember thinking at one time, can't remember how old I was, but I remember thinking, I hate going to school reunions. I've been to 2 schools. I don't want to go to reunions and say, well, actually, I'm not married and I don't have children, because I kept playing this story in my head, going, I'm not going, I'm not going, I'm not going, because I don't want to tell people my story. I'm divorced, don't have children. That's sad. So this opportunity came up, and suddenly a voice went in my head and went, well, why don't you just organise one? So I did. I organised. So it was basically the school. I know, crazy, huh? So the school had they took girls in at the sixth form in 1973, and it turned out it was going to be the 40-year anniversary in what was it, 2013, of 40 years at the school. So I went, okay, right, come on, we're going to smash this one out of the water, and I did it for myself. I just did it for myself. So I got a list of people. I contacted them through the school's help and stuff, and we got 100 women together in this room. And
Amazing.
and I didn't even, and then I stood up and made a speech about the fact that I was divorced and didn't have children, and I was grateful to the school for everything they taught me.
Oh, Julia.
I know. I've still got a photograph here in my office because my best friend, we're at the front of this picture hugging each other, and I was with her yesterday as well. So it was just I just had, it doesn't happen all the time. Sometimes I do hide away. Don't get me wrong. Sometimes I do just go, I don't want to face the world today, and I'm not going to. And it's like that, like the diagram. Sometimes it's like, oh my God, life's horrendous, and then other times like, no, I'm absolutely going to challenge that. So I'm in a challenging. I went to an amazing conference yesterday, so I'm in challenging mode. I'm in effort mode. Effort mode. I'm just gonna, change something. But it does. I definitely go left to right, left to right, left to right.
Mhm.
I am really lucky because I do feel like I'm in that limbo land at the moment, and I'm grateful for every day because my friends don't yet have grandchildren, but I know that day is coming.
Yeah.
So I am grateful for today because today is the day. I think my one friend has a granddaughter and she's completely obsessed, and I get that. I totally get that, but she's not all over me, if you see what I mean. I think she's keeping a respectful distance. She did invite me for lunch with the baby, and I went and I held the baby, and I thought I deep breathed, I deep breathed, and I was like, I can do this, I can do this.
Well done.
Yeah, and I did, and I probably, I did it. I thought I'm going to do this because it's important for my friend, so I did it. And I think I do that a lot. I think we perhaps do that a lot. We'll put our own feelings aside so that we can fit in with these events, and I'm still working on that one. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But as I say, I'm grateful at the time. But things do trigger me a lot. Like I come off social media in the summer. I really don't like Christmas. I'm protect myself at times as well.
Normal.
Yeah.
I love the story about the reunion.
Oh
That's
yeah.
inspiring.
I know.
So, Julia.
So that's just moments, glimmers. But sometimes all the stars align and you think, yeah, I'm just gonna absolutely smash that one. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you, Julia.
Thank you.
Terry, what about you? How do you relate to the two sides, and where are you at this moment in time?
Well, it's hard to say where I'm at. I'm bouncing.
It's a
I'm
difficult question,
zigzagging
isn't it? Sometimes like that
constantly.
zigzag happens in 30 seconds. It's in listening to this
Exactly.
conversation, I feel myself zigzagging.
Yes,
Uh,
yes, yes.
mm,
And I have to say, I love that model because when I first encountered it, I think with you, I felt like, oh, I have permission to go
mm,
back and forth. Oh, so grief isn't just one thing that I process once and I'm done with it. It's sort of like a visitor that shows up at my door. Sometimes I expect it, like Mother's Day, and I can prep for the visit. And a lot of the times I have no idea it's coming.
mm,
Um,
mm.
and so the model gives me permission to do the zigzagging. Um, I'll tell a quick story. That I was in the doctor's office the other day, and I got in the elevator when I was done, and it was coming down, and a young mother got on the elevator pushing a stroller with a brand new baby, and that elevator door closed, and it was just young mother, baby, and me, and I would have clawed my way out of that elevator if I could have. Um, and she was sort of looking at me like, softly, and she's probably used to people just making over her baby because it was a beautiful baby. And he's like, I'm not doing it. Through that, and the great thing, I mean, and I felt like such a horrible person. I thought, but what the grief work allowed me to do was just be empathetic and compassionate toward myself. And it's okay, and that's normal, and it doesn't mean I'm a terrible person. And so that was a definite zigzag moment. But yeah, where I'm at on any given day is a mystery. But just having, again, the permission to do the Z motion really helps.
Yeah. Mm-mm. How does that bit, Terry, relate for you about what I said? Because I think it's key in what I wanted to put across, but it's interesting to hear from you ladies as to how it sits, that it is a zigzag and you never go back to the same point and you have different perspectives every time you go back there. How does that sit with you?
That resonates as true for me, because even though I'm zigzagging, there is progress. There is progress. I don't feel like a pinball in a pinball machine just constantly. So I do there is sort of a movement down, like yours was down the list. I do feel that, and I see that. And it's okay if I go right back up to the beginning again. Sometimes I can zigzag my way down, but ultimately there's progress and healing in it. So
thank you so much for sharing.
thank you.
We've got permission to go over a little bit, so there's no need to rush, girls. I know that then. So Bethan, we'd love to hear from you as well. So it's then take your time and share what you'd like to share. So.
I mean, it's just so lovely to sit here because I relate to so much of everything everyone said. And that's the power in it, I think. And it's just the strength and courage everyone's showing is just so filling me with warmth and joy. So I think for me, big gatherings and social occasions were a big trigger this time last year, and I was feeling really guilty about that. And I think I'd been stuck in the joy distraction mode for so long and fighting against my grief and the discomfort that was coming up. And I was kind of feeling guilty about why am I finding these things difficult? I usually enjoy these. I love these big gatherings. I love my family. So why am I finding it so difficult? And it was just this horrible conflict inside. And then once I kind of acknowledged the grief and accepted it and said it's okay for me to feel that grief, it just took so much pressure away from myself, and it opened up the conversations with my family and my best friends to say, I've been really silent about this for a long time because I've felt like ashamed, really, or guilty. But I need to tell you because I love you, and just because I'm finding spending time with families difficult doesn't mean I don't love you, but I just right now can't do it, or I need to do it differently. So I think what helped this time last year was just really leaning into the things that soothe me. So time with my husband, my dog, quiet time, just literally hibernating and shutting the world out, really, to be honest. And spending time in nature, which for me is a real healer, because she can hold me. And there's no judgment, there's no expectation, and there's just wilderness. So those simple things really restored me. into a position in which I could maybe try and start dipping my toe back into the stuff that brings me energy. So I'm quite an energetic person, and I think I've always just gone and gone and gone, which was a really functional coping strategy to a degree. But it got to a point where I just couldn't do that anymore, and I had to just stop and look after myself and just do what I needed to do to recover, which, you know, I have, but I'm just doing things differently. I'm doing social gatherings, which are kind of fun with people who don't focus on parenthood as their main purpose. So music, I joined a choir. I've been to lots of gigs over the summer. So yeah, just finding my playful, creative side again has been really restorative. And just not feeling guilty about that, really, because if you don't look after yourself, then
Absolutely. Absolutely.
yeah.
Kind of like from what you were saying a little bit is then, you know, I spoke about it at the beginning about words like gratitude and joy and things like that, feeling a bit like, oh, like that's it's too big. It's like, yeah, you know, I'm in this deep place of healing at this moment in time, and like pulling across those words can feel just too much. Whereas the essence that came out of the things about you connecting with nature and things like that, just like, okay, that step across to peace is then sometimes an easier step. What can give me peace at this moment in time? And that can be nature, that can be a piece of chocolate, that can be whatever you need at this moment in time is but that was what kind of came out for me in that journey before, you know, it feels like, I don't know, that there was a re-emerging there of Beth in some ways. So that was really beautiful. Thank you, Beth, for sharing. Excuse me. Yeah, I guess like we are like over time already, and you know, I guess people have to run off. But still, I don't know. I like to kind of check out in my calls a little bit by and yeah, everyone probably hates this piece, but still like with a kind of word of what your take on, but maybe twisting it a little bit as to just like a word of what you hope the person listening to this is taking away with them today. How would you like to kind of sign out from this call today? How would that then, sorry, I always like throw that in there, like, oh my God, now I have to think as to something. But what's like a one word takeaway that you'd like anyone listening who's just identified that they are grieving or are thinking, you know, but yeah, they've been on that step that we've spoke about, that, you know, that the grief has kind of been on hold in a way in some stages, and they're like, okay, perhaps I need to step into that because, you know, we're hearing kind of both evolve in this call in some ways. But yeah, what would you like folks to take away with them?
I would hope that people can hear that everybody on this call has reached out to Sandra or somebody within the Childless Life community, Childless Not by Choice community, and got support. For me, peer support.
Peer support.
Yeah. For me, it's been the most important part of this journey and has helped me heal more than anything.
And just to empathise on that, that then World Childless Week has a page with support groups, with therapists. You know, there's loads of people out there now. You know, I think
And
with
I bought my
people.
badge as well.
Boy!
I bought my badge on Saturday. Yep.
Cool, cool. But yeah, there's yeah, lots and lots of people out there. So you know, it's then and we're all
Find your people,
so
find your tribe.
find your people. Yep, yep, yep. Beautiful. Thank you, Tracy.
Yeah, I think I'd echo that. I know there's people on this call from I did a book group reading Jodie's thing, and we still have a WhatsApp that was 4 or 5 years ago. And I know there's people on this call from that. Super grateful for that group, and also Sandra's group that I was part of. I know there's people on this call that are listening from that. And again, we've got a messenger group, and just honestly, when you flip between those two sides, having people that you can go to when you're on the more difficult side that other people don't get. That's been really helpful for sure. But I think my phrase would be, there's nothing wrong with you. I think every time I fall into grief or get triggered, I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And you have to go, there's nothing wrong with you. There is nothing wrong with you. So I'd like people to know, whatever your story, however you're feeling, there is nothing wrong with you.
Beautiful. Thank you, Catherine.
Shall I go?
Yeah.
I'm just really grateful. I haven't said this yet, and I wanted to say it, is I'm just so grateful to all the women because having had all these feelings inside for such a long time, I'm just really, and not being able to find my voice and not being able to express it the way I couldn't find a way to express it. That you, Sandra, and all the people at Childless Week, and people I've met like Jessica Hepburn and Jodie Day, to start this movement, because there are women coming behind us who are just starting on their journey, and it is really tough. And I'm just so grateful that we've got these communities now. We've got people like you, Sandra, creating your horseshoes, and it's just it's so wonderful that people are stepping out. And that's why I wanted to come on this call, is because, and I wanted to do my bit to step out and start talking about what it's like and how it feels. I did post, I think, something on LinkedIn last year, and a male colleague of mine replied and said, "Oh, thank you so much for this, Julia. I didn't even know it was a thing." So I mean, it's not a thing. It's not a thing, but it was the way he expressed
No, but
it.
still, just to get that acknowledgement
It
from somebody.
never crossed
Yeah,
his
exactly.
radar. It just wasn't on
And
his
the
radar at all.
bravery of LinkedIn. LinkedIn is yes. So
Yeah, exactly. So he hadn't ever heard of it. So there we go. He's quite a big influencer on LinkedIn and in the networking space. So anyway, I won't go on too much, but it's just so lovely that our voices are getting heard now, and it's starting to be louder. As it said, I think I saw yesterday, it's World Childless Week is getting louder, and that's what we need. So I'll echo what everybody else says about, there is nothing wrong with us, and there's nothing wrong with you who are listening, and anyone else out there. We're here to support each other, and that's so important.
beautiful. Thank you. Beth or Terry?
I just like to I hope was given something that I was lacking last year, but through the community and all these incredible people that I've met, I've got some back, and that's, in Welsh we say gobaith, which is hope.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you. Terry.
I think that the main thing coming up for me around this is just that we're not alone. We're not alone. And I felt so alone for so many years. And we're this beautiful community, and we can support each other. And there is a World Childless Week. How amazing is
Yeah,
that?
it is amazing.
There is that.
And you're part of it. We're all
And
part of it.
we're all part of it. So what's coming up for me is just support and community and healing, and it's there. It's all there. And we're not alone. We're not alone.
Beautiful. Find your tribe, community. There is nothing wrong with you. Roaring in September, speaking out. Gobaith, is that the right pronunciation? Don't know. Okay, hope, and you're not alone. Those are the messages that then we're sending you off with today. So thank you all for being here. I apologize that we went over slightly, and I really appreciate you all being here. But lots of love and gratitude to these very brave ladies who have been on today speaking out their story for the very first time. I really appreciate it. And again, Stephanie, thank you for a 9th year of World Childless Week. Really appreciate it. And I've been reading along in the chat, and just some beautiful things in there as well. And thank you all so much. Really appreciate you all. And yeah, wishing you a wonderful World Childless Week. Take care.